Hi everyone, I'm Yuda, a Japanese immigration lawyer. Today, I'll be talking about the whole process of starting a company in Japan and getting a business manager visa. Lately, we've been seeing a big increase in foreign entrepreneurs coming to Japan. To give you an idea, the number has gone up by about 145% between 2019 and 2024. Now, the path to getting a business manager visa isn't the same for everyone. It really depends on your specific situation. But in general, there are three main patterns we usually see. From setting up your company to actually getting the visa, it can take over 6 months. And if you don't follow the right steps from the beginning, you might have to start all over again later on, which can be a real headache. So today, I'll break down the process clearly for you. If you're planning to apply for a business manager visa, make sure to stick around and take some notes. So, what's a business manager visa? Good question. The business manager visa is a type of resident status that lets foreign nationals run or manage a business here in Japan. It's designed for people like company owners and CEOs, executive directors, or board members, managers sent from overseas companies, like if your head office is in China and you're coming to lead the Japan branch factory heads and similar roles. What's the process like? If you're planning to set up a new company and get this visa, the steps you'll need to take really depend on whether you're already living in Japan or not. That's the starting point, and based on that, we can divide the process into three main cases. Case 1. When the person is already in Japan. This applies to people who are already living in Japan with some kind of visa, like a student visa or a visa for engineers, humanities, or international services. If they want to start their own company and switch to a business manager visa, there is a clear process to follow. Case 2. When the person is outside Japan. If the person is still living abroad, this can be further divided into two cases. They have someone in Japan who can help. We call this person a collaborator, or they don't have anyone in Japan. And depending on whether there's a collaborator or not, the whole process changes. By the way, a collaborator here means someone who can take care of the company registration procedures in Japan on your behalf. This role is really important, and I'll explain more about it later. Now, let's go over the process if the person is already in Japan and wants to change their visa. Step 1, decide the basics. First, you need to sort out the essentials, like the company name, address, business activities, and how much capital you'll put in. And about the capital, one of the requirements for the business manager visa is that the total investment has to be at least 5 million yen. So most people just go with 5 million yen for their starting capital. Once you've decided on all of that, the next step is to rent an office for the company. Step 2, register the company, create the articles of incorporation. This document basically lays out the rules for how your company will operate. If you're setting up a kabushiki kaisha, which means a corporation, you'll need to get it notarized at a notary office. For a godo kaisha, which means a limited liability company, you don't need notarization. Once that's done, you'll deposit the capital into a bank account. But at this point, your company hasn't been officially registered yet, so you can't open a corporate account yet. So instead, you'll use your personal bank account. For example, if you're a foreigner starting your own company and you're the only investor and also becoming the director, you transfer the full amount, like 5 million yen, into your own personal bank account in Japan. Then you bring that proof of deposit to the Legal Affairs Bureau to officially register the company. They'll recognize the 5 million yen as your starting capital, and that's it. Once the registration is done, your company is officially set up. So after you've officially set up your company, the next thing you need to do is submit some notifications to different government offices, like the tax office, your local city hall, and the pension office, to let them know, hey, I started a company. At the tax office, you'll also have to fill out and submit a few extra forms. For example, notification of starting a payroll office if you're going to pay salaries. Application for blue tax return status, which has some tax benefits. There are a bunch of required forms depending on what you're doing, so just make sure you follow the rules and deadlines properly. Next up, if your type of business needs a license, you'll have to apply for that before anything else. This is important if you're planning to run something like a restaurant or cafe, a hotel or guest house, a construction business, a delivery or transport service. Basically, if the business is regulated, you'll need to get the proper permits first. But if your business doesn't need a license, you can just move ahead to the visa application part. Once that's all sorted, you're ready to apply for the Business Manager visa. For that, you'll need to put together a proper business plan. This plan should include your background and what kind of experience you have, what your new company will actually do, your sales projections, like we expect this much revenue in the first year, why you believe those numbers are realistic with supporting evidence, how you plan to market your business, any other documents or materials to back it all up. Immigration will be checking whether your business idea looks stable and sustainable. They want to see that it's not just a dream on paper, but something that can actually work in the long run. If they're not convinced, they won't approve the visa. Once you get approved, immigration will issue your new residence card under the Business Manager status. And with that, you're officially good to go. You can now legally run your business in Japan. That's pretty much the whole process. Alright, next I'd like to explain the process when the person setting up the company is living outside Japan. The steps are different depending on whether or not you have a collaborator in Japan. Here we'll go over the process when you do have a collaborator in Japan. First, you'll need to decide on some basic things like the company name, the office address, the purpose of your business, any qualifications required. This part can all be handled remotely, so even if you're overseas, you can take care of it yourself. Now comes renting office space in Japan. This can be difficult if you're not living in Japan and don't have a Japanese address. Most landlords in Japan are hesitant to rent to foreigners without a local address. They worry about what would happen if you didn't pay rent. For example, how would they collect payment from someone living in another country? Because of that, many landlords simply refuse to sign contracts with people who don't live in Japan. That's where your collaborator comes in. In most cases, the collaborator living in Japan will sign the office lease on your behalf. Next, you'll move on to registering the company. That includes drafting the articles of incorporation, and if you're forming a Kabushiki Kaisha KK, getting them notarized. The next step is capital deposit. Here's where it gets tricky. Since your company isn't registered yet, you can't open a corporate bank account. So you'll need to deposit your capital into a personal account. However, that account has to meet specific conditions. It must be a bank account in Japan and belong to either a promoter of the company or someone registered as a founding director of the company. Now here's the problem. If you're overseas and don't have an address in Japan, it's nearly impossible to open a personal bank account in Japan. Almost all Japanese banks require a local address. So, if you don't already have a Japanese bank account, you won't have anywhere to deposit the capital. The usual solution is to have your collaborator in Japan become a founding director of the company, transfer the capital, say 5 million yen, from your country to your collaborator's personal bank account in Japan. Use that account as proof of capital for the company registration. For example, let's say Mr. A is in China and wants to start a company in Japan with 5 million yen, and he wants to be the 100% shareholder. Since he doesn't have a Japanese bank account, he appoints a collaborator in Japan as a founding director. Mr. A transfers the 5 million yen to that person's account, and they use it to complete the incorporation process. That's the typical flow when someone is living overseas but has support in Japan. This is a really important part, so let me go over it again clearly. If the person is living overseas, they don't have a Japanese address. And without a Japanese address, they can't open a personal bank account in Japan. That means there's no account to use for depositing the capital needed to start the company. Because of that, the money has to be transferred into the personal bank account of a collaborator in Japan, someone who's been appointed as an initial director of the company. That's how this process usually works. Once the company is registered, there are several government filings that need to be done, like with the pension office or the labor standards office. Since the main person is overseas, it's pretty difficult for them to handle those steps, so the collaborator in Japan takes care of them instead. As the same goes for applying for any necessary business licenses. In most cases, the collaborator also handles those applications locally in Japan. After that, the next step is applying for the visa, officially called a status of residence. Once immigration approves the application, they issue a certificate of eligibility. The person living abroad uses that certificate to apply for a visa at the Japanese embassy or consulate in their home country. Once they get the visa, they can enter Japan. That's the general flow if there's someone in Japan helping. Now let's talk about the case where the person is overseas and there's no collaborator in Japan. In this case, they'll need to apply for a special visa called the 4-month Business Manager Visa. Like I mentioned earlier, it's extremely difficult to set up a company in Japan without someone in Japan to help. Without a Japanese bank account, there's nowhere to deposit the initial capital. And without that, you can't complete the company registration. You also can't rent an office easily because most landlords don't rent to people without a Japanese address. And without a registered company, you can't apply for the Business Manager Visa. That's why this temporary 4-month visa exists, to give people time to get everything ready while they're in Japan. To quickly summarize, here's what you need to start a company in Japan. 1. Rent an office. 2. Notarize the articles of incorporation, unless it's an LLC. 3. Deposit the capital. 4. Register the company. In order to apply for the Business Manager Visa, the company has to already be up and running. But if the person doesn't have a Japanese address, they probably can't rent an office. Most landlords won't sign a lease with someone who doesn't live in Japan. Also, without a Japanese bank account, the capital can't be deposited. And without that deposit, the registration can't be completed. So, if there's no collaborator to handle these things, the company can't be set up. And if the company doesn't exist, the visa can't be issued. Some people might say, just find someone to help. But realistically, when you're living overseas and sending a large amount of capital to someone in Japan, you need a very strong level of trust. That's not easy to find. In fact, it's pretty rare to already have someone in Japan you trust enough to act as your collaborator in this process. A lot of people who want to start a business in Japan run into the same issue. They don't have anyone in Japan who's willing to let them use their personal bank account to receive the capital deposit. That's why Japan has something called the 4-month Business Manager Visa. This visa was created to help foreign entrepreneurs get started in Japan by giving them a short preparation period. The big advantage is that you don't need to have your company fully set up before applying. In fact, you don't even need to have the capital deposited or an office lease signed yet. All of those steps can be done after you enter Japan with this visa, so even if you don't have a collaborator in Japan, you can still register your company yourself. That's what makes this 4-month visa so useful. Now I'd like to explain the process of obtaining a Business Manager Visa using the 4-month visa. First, drafting the articles of incorporation. You prepare the basic plan for your company, the name, proposed address, business details, and estimated finances. Normally, you'd need to sign a lease before drafting the articles, but in this case, it's fine to just pick a potential location. You'll sign the lease after arriving in Japan. Next, gathering documents and preparing a business plan. You collect the necessary documents and create your business plan. This plan is a required part of your visa application, so it has to be ready before applying. Then you submit everything to immigration. If approved, you'll get the 4-month Business Manager Visa and can enter Japan. Now, this part is really important. The 4-month visa is actually intended to give you time to prepare for the company registration process. So once you enter Japan, you need to use those 4 months to do things like registering your office address, getting a seal certificate called Inkan Shomei in Japanese, signing a lease for your office, and opening a personal bank account at a Japanese bank. Once you've successfully opened your personal bank account in Japan, let's say you're the applicant and you're from the US, can transfer your capital from your personal account in the US into this new Japanese bank account. By doing that, the funds are officially recognized as your company's capital, and you can move forward with the incorporation. By the way, people sometimes ask if they can just come on a tourist visa or short-term visa and open a bank account that way. The answer is no. Almost no banks in Japan will let you open a personal account unless you have the right visa status. So if you want to deposit your capital and register your company, you need to come on the 4-month Business Manager Visa. After the capital is deposited, you complete your company registration. Then you file paperwork with the tax office and other agencies. If your type of business needs a license, you apply for that too. Now, if you had a local collaborator, that person could have handled all this for you. But most people don't have someone in Japan they trust enough to take on that responsibility. So this 4-month visa lets you take care of it all yourself. Once everything is done, company registration, lease signed, account opened, capital deposited, you can apply to renew your visa from 4 months to a standard 1-year business manager visa. As long as you've completed all the steps properly, immigration will usually approve it. So that's the process. If you're overseas, whether or not you have someone helping you in Japan really changes how things work. That's why it's so important to plan ahead and know which route fits your situation best. That's all for today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thanks for watching.